All right, solve the proportion. All we have to do here is cross multiply and divide. So we get 4 over p equals 20 over 7. 4 times 7 is 28. 20 times p is just 20p. And then divide by 20. It says type a whole number or a fraction. So what we're going to do here is simplify this fraction. So 28 over 20 can be reduced by 2. Can be reduced by 4 actually, even bigger, which gives us 7/5. And so that will be our answer. That can't be reduced any further, so I know I'm good there. Okay, another proportion. 138. Let me rewrite that. 138 over 23 equals 12 over x. Cross multiply and divide. That's always the name of the game here. 12 times 23, 276. I wonder if that's just 2. Yep. So we get 2. The label on a concentrated drug solution indicates that it contains 85 milligrams of medication in 5 milliliters. Okay, if the patient is to receive 230 milligrams, how much solution should be given? So if there's 85 milligrams in 5 milliliters, then how much do you need for 230 milligrams? Well, all we have to do there is really just take 230 milligrams divided by 85. That gives us 2.7. This might actually be better to leave it as a fraction because we're going to end up multiplying this again. Let me do it this way. Let me put it as a proportion. So if 85 milligrams go to 5 milliliters, then 230 milligrams go to x milliliters. And this, you can see, we can write it as a proportion, and we can cross multiply and divide. So you have 85x equals 5 times 230 divided by 85. It says round to the nearest tenth. So this is the number I get. It continues on, but the nearest tenth is this space. Look at the next one. Is this 2 or greater? Or is this 5 or greater, I should say. It is not, so we drop it, and we get 13.5. Yep. A proportion, if you can make one, is probably the simplest way of doing these types of problems. And that you can always do when you have like 85 milligrams of medication, when you're looking at a new type of measurement, 230 milligrams of medication, how much solution? When you're always kind of scaling up or down any kind of thing, a proportion really works out very nicely. And it makes the mathematics very clean for what you're trying to do. All you have to do is cross multiply and divide. Oops, I already checked that one. Okay, an 18 gear on a motor shaft drives a larger gear having 48. If the motor shaft rotates 800, what is the speed of the larger gear? All right, for this one, we have to make a proportion. What's important to note here is that whenever you're making a proportion, you need to figure out if it's direct or an inverse proportion. The previous problem, we were just scaling up a medication. That's a direct proportion, right? If we want more, if 85 milligrams are in 5 milliliters, then to get more milligrams, we need to have more milliliters. So as one increases, the other increase. That's a direct proportion. If one decreases, the other decreases. That's still a direct proportion. What's an inverse proportion is as one increases, the other decreases. Like this case here. An 18 tooth gear, I can use kind of a simpler example. Let's say we have four teeth on a gear. Let's say this larger gear has, let's say 12. 1, 2, nope. We could say 16. That'd be a little bit easier for me to draw. That should be 16. Okay. As this one goes around, right? Like as it goes around one full revolution, there's going to be four of these teeth, right? This one, and then this one, and then this one, and then this one are going to hit this tooth, which is going to cause this to go down a little bit. This tooth is going to cause it to go down a little bit more. This tooth, and then this tooth. So when the smaller gear went around one full revolution, the bigger gear only went around a quarter of a turn. That's because there's a gear ratio, right? Like as one goes faster, the speed of the larger gear goes faster, but not in the same directly speed. I hope that makes sense. Or let me say it this way. As the gear teeth increase, the speed at which it rotates decreases. Right? Here we went from 4 teeth to 16 teeth. And here we went from, so we increased, this rate was an increase. Here we went from 1 revolution to a quarter of a revolution. And that was a decrease of speed. So the bigger the gear, well, by that I mean the more teeth, the lower the revolution. So this is an inverse variation. Now, the way we can do that, right, we have our variations here. This isn't the one we want. We want what's written there. 18 teeth, right? 18 teeth goes to 800 rotations per minute. And then we will go to a bigger gear, with more teeth, goes to X rotations per minute. Now, if I just wrote this as a proportion like this would be a direct variation. We need to instead flip this second side. We went X over 800. Now you see that they are across each other, and we can use this proportion to find this the answer to this problem. That's what gives you a inverse variation. All you have to do is just flip one of the fractions. Don't flip both, just one. Okay, cross multiplying and dividing is still how we solve proportions. 18 times 800 is 14,400 equals 48x, and then divide by 48. Gives you 300. So 300 is the rotations per minute. And that's correct. So we had a smaller tooth gear, right? 18 tooth gear, which rotated at 800 RPMs. Then we had a larger tooth gear with 48 teeth. And now we have a speed of 300 RPMs, a slower speed, even though it had a larger gear, right? If this was a direct variation, then 18 goes to 800, 48 then would go to some larger number like 1600 or maybe even like 4500, something like that. But it's not. It's an inverse variation. All right. When a tire is inflated, the air pressure is inversely proportional. So we know this one directly is an inverse variation. Air pressure is inversely proportional to the volume of the air. Okay, if the pressure of a certain tire is 23 psi, when the volume is 130 cubic inches, what is the pressure when it is 150 cubic inches. So because this is inversely proportional, we can assume that as cubic inches, or the volume of the air, increases, PSI will decrease. So it should be less than 23, maybe like 21 or something. To find this, all we have to do is flip one of the sides, 150, 130, and now you see that we have an inverse variation here. Okay. Probably the most important thing, well, besides the flip, is that you have the same units on each side of the equation. That way you have a ratio equals a ratio. Yeah, that's probably the most important thing when you're setting up proportions, to do it correctly. Okay, cross multiply and divide. 150x equals 23 times 130. And divide by 150. Gives us 19.9333. Repeating. And it says round to the nearest tenth. This is the 10th space. Is that 5 or greater? No, it is not. So we just drop it. We get 19.9. Excellent.